Today, I want to take you on a little journey of spiciness. Watching a wonderful lady who's up in Canada that does Hot Thai Kitchen, which is a YouTube channel that teaches Thai cuisine, and she went over and talked about sriracha. And she went over the little bit about the town that the name sriracha comes from, and how she went about doing it. And I saw this and I'm like, I should put my own spin on that and show it to you. The video is a little rough, and I've done my best to kind of put this together, but this is the first foot forward and gotta run with it. Well, what we're gonna need are red chili peppers. I'm using red Korean chilies, which is basically what they use in gochujang, kimchi, and so forth, and Fresno peppers, a ton of garlic, sugar, salt, heat, a blending, and what I'm doing that's different is I'm actually going to smoke this. So it's smoked sriracha, and traditional brands that are the Red Rooster, which every Chinese and Asian restaurant I've ever been to uses, except in California they use some more specialty stuff that's kind of local or that's different. Red Rooster uses red jalapenos. I saw that I actually tried the other day uses cayenne peppers, and I didn't really care for it. Was okay, but not to my taste. I like cayenne pepper, don't get me wrong, but this was just not my cup of tea. So, but I'm using Fresno chilies. I'm going to use Korean peppers. I'm not for sure which ones they are, but the one thing you do want to make sure is that you have peppers that have a good amount of flesh, because that's really what makes the sauce up. Oh, and vinegar. I knew I was going to forget something. Vinegar. We have to have vinegar. And I'm using apple cider vinegar today. I normally do a blend, but for this I just wanted to keep it simple for the first time. This is my first time actually making the sauce, but I was inspired by her. I came up with the idea, and I recorded it with the help of my daughter and my sons, and I hope you enjoy. First, we want to make sure that we prep the chilies and the garlic. Peel the garlic. I ended up getting mine already pre-peeled from the store, washed, rinsed, everything. Slice all the chilies into fairly big pieces, taking the tops off. Leave the seeds in because that's where some of the heat is. We will filter out a lot of the seeds later on. Now, for me, in the way my smoker that I built is set up on a large cookie sheet with a rack, so we have circulation underneath and above. I ended up smoking it for 4 hours. I used applewood and hickory to smoke. And well, look at that big plume of smoke there. Isn't that beautiful? And my son, that's dry. He was so happy to open that smoker. He was like, oh, look at all the smoke. And we leave it in there, and we take our time and just kind of, come back to it. And, we take it out, and, it doesn't look like it's changed a whole lot. But trust me, it's light heat, but we want the kiss of smoke on there. Now we take it from the outdoors into the indoors, into the kitchen. As you can see, my son Jacob Jr., or as we call him Zelix in the gaming world, is taking the chilies off of the pan and putting it into a bowl and wrapping it with saran wrap. We do this to let it sit overnight so the smoke permeates the flesh of the garlic and of the chilies, and so it's just as much can be in there as possible. And as you can see, by having it on the rack, a lot of the seeds were left behind. There's a lot more seeds here than I was expecting, so that's a ton of seeds, which you really don't want to put a ton of seeds into the sauce itself. It promotes a lot of bitterness, and to me, that's not good eats. It's not tasty or anything else to that effect. And now that we'll take it out of the fridge, and now that we've let it sit for a while, we're going to go ahead and put it into a pan. I'm using one of my 6 quart, I think, or is this an 8 quart? No, 8 quart's the bigger one. Well, a fairly large pan. We usually call this the old macaroni pan because this is what we used to make mac and cheese in. Now we have to use the big stock pot for mac and cheese because there's 6 kids. Uh, so we go ahead, we put the chilies into the pan, and we make sure that and the garlic. Always don't forget the garlic, and make sure it is completely submerged with your vinegar. I'm using apple cider vinegar. In the Hot Thai kitchen, she used just regular white vinegar, I believe, white distilled vinegar. Each one has their own unique taste. It all depends on what you prefer. Since I'm going for the smoked aspect of it, apple cider vinegar just kind of goes with barbecue and smoked and pulled pork. So we used apple cider vinegar. And it looks like I did not have enough there, so we have to add a little bit of a different brand to make sure it's all fully cooked. Now we bring it up to a boil, we turn it down to a lower temperature, and we let it cook for a couple hours because there's a few reasons for it. One, we want the garlic to completely soften and be easily just kind of sliced through. And two, you want the acidity and the heat to work on the garlic because there's a little thing called botulism. And if garlic or green beans or other things that are not processed correctly or cooked correctly, can make you sick after it is stored for a while. But with the acidity that we've put in there, the capsaicin that is in there, and for the amount of time and heat that we cooked in, and this is going to be cooked twice, I'm pretty sure we're going to be okay for leaving in the fridge for a couple of weeks to a month or so. And from there, we go ahead and we stir it a couple times. I think I put a lid on it. Go ahead, we let it cool. For the next step, we have one of two things we can do. You can use an immersion blender, which is a stick blender, which I have nothing against those. Mine happened to get dropped and the speed control got broken, and I don't feel safe using it right now. Or you can use a blender. I have a Vitamix, and though I have some really neat tools, a chef is not as good as the tools, but he's good with any tool he can use. So I'm going to use the Vitamix. I carefully poured the chilies and all the vinegar into the blender and slowly turn it all up. Got the cap on there nice and tight, and turn it up, and then we let it blend for quite a while. I wanted to make sure this thing is as smooth as creamy peanut butter, but not as thick. And make sure it is completely pulverized. This is going to be just smack. Now, while this is pureeing, we want to make sure we take some time, and my brain just went blank. Hold on a minute. After we're done pureeing, we check it out. Check out the color of this. So isn't it beautiful? That beautiful, vibrant red. And I don't have the greatest lighting in here, but it is beautiful. And that's the one thing I was just like, even if it doesn't taste good, it just looks good. But right now, it's just blended chilies and garlic, and we need to start seasoning this. So you have to add some salt and some sugar. I used about a quarter to a half, maybe 2/3 of a cup of sugar, and about 2 or 3 pinches of salt. And these are pretty big pinches, so I'd say probably about a good teaspoon to 2 teaspoons of salt, because I got big pinchers. And I did a pretty hefty bit, and I know vinegar can really take the saltiness into it with the spiciness and the sweetness and the garlicliness. That's one of the best things about sriracha, is that this is more about the technique and about how the process goes along than the ingredients itself. But after it was completely blended, we wanted to go ahead. Now you can do one of two things. I did not need to do this because the Vitamix did such a great job. But with a fine mesh strainer, you'd want to strain it. Push it through, like especially if you're using a stick blender. You want to get as much of any type of bigger pieces, like the bigger chunks of skin of the waxy skin of the peppers that didn't, blend up very well. and sift that all through there, and make sure you push really hard. You'll always get more out of there than you really think, and scrape the bottom of the scraper of the, not the scraper, what do you call it? The bottom of the strainer. There we go, the mesh strainer. And now that we have it all done, we want to give it a taste. Mine's tasting pretty good. I think a little bit more salt is needed. And you want to put it back on the burner, get it back to a boil, let it cook with the lid partially on for a good 30 minutes more. This is more, it'll condense the flavors, it will melt the sugar down, and make sure everything, it meshes everything, it just molds and molecularly becomes one as a cohesive unit. And after that, you go ahead and you let it cool. I let mine cool overnight, and then I put it in the jars. I put one, I had an old Red Rooster sriracha bottle. I filled that up, and then I put the rest into a mason jar. But I got one full Red Rooster, reused Red Rooster jar. That was you gotta make sure you properly wash it and sanitize it though, because you don't want to mix and match and stuff like that, and possibly get sick from contamination. And an additional pint and a half of sauce from just the volume I had for it. Now, the flavors were not fully developed right off the bat, right off the stove. It tasted good. It had a unique heatness the way this was prepared, where the back of my palate felt the heat, and it wasn't hot like it was about ready to make me cry like a little girl, but it really just warmed the back of my palate, savory down the back of my throat. It was wonderful. But for the smoke to let the flavors mingle, I let it sit in the fridge for a couple days and then tried it again, and it just keeps getting better as it gets older. And same with Tabasco sauce and it's Tabasco peppers. They're aged in barrels. If I get my hands on an old barrel, a wine barrel that I can actually age my sauce in, oh boy, I tell you what, the things I can create. Ho, 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 ho. But that is sriracha, smoked sriracha in that crud. I just totally... Thanks for joining me on Inspire 2. I will see you next time, and hope you're inspired. And if you have something that you think that'll inspire me, please leave it down in the comments down below, or send me a private message. Or if there's something that you think I should see, that say, hey, I'd like to hear your spin on this, I'd love to hear it. Thank you for watching, and hit that subscribe button if you want to keep. And please, if you like it, please hit that like button. And if you didn't, please hit the dislike button. I really do appreciate it. And I'm really interested in hearing your comments and your thoughts about this also. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a pleasant day. Goodbye.